Hi all, very good morning. Thanks all for joining the session today. So in this session, I want to cover the list of topics. So let me share my screen so that you can understand that what topics that we are going to cover as a part of the demo session, and going forward, what kind of topics that we discuss as a part of the Salesforce DevOps and also the Salesforce related DevOps tool called Copado. So let me share my screen. Just give me 1 second. All right. I guess you are able to see my screen. So if not, just let me know if somebody is stuck or if somebody is not able to hear or anything, right? Just put that uh, any message in the chat so that I can see and then I can get it corrected. Yeah. So as you know that in the Salesforce market, we have different tools with respect to the deployments. Like initially, Salesforce come up with the default tool called internal tool called Chainset, where deployments happen using the chain sets only. But later, what happens is that there is a problem where you cannot deploy everything with the chain sets and you cannot see what metadata is being deployed to other instances. So it's becoming a problem when you're trying to deploy metadata, right? So you're not able to see the structure, how it is getting deployed. And there are some disadvantages and also some of the uh, cons with the chain sets deployments. So that's where later you got and comes into picture where you have package.xml and where you have build.properties, where you have build.xml. In build.properties, you can define credentials, which environment to which environment, like source and destination environments to be deployed. And in build.xml, we define with respect to the functions called deploy, functions called validate, the functions called destructive changes, peak deploy, forget about destructive, deploy, validate, peak deploy. So we have to write some script, like two-line script with respect to build.xml, where you define the list of components in the package.xml and use few commands which they are given. So if you use and retrieve, then whatever is there in build.properties, like the source and the destination, right? So what you define here, right, in the source, and using the package.xml, the metadata will get retrieved. And when you say and deploy, the same thing will get deployed to or what got retrieved from previous package. When I say previous, when you use the command call and retrieve, whatever the metadata that you got retrieved that you define in the package.xml. So this simple package.xml looks like this. So question mark XML tag version, something like that. And inside that you have types and you have members, members, and you have name of types. So name is nothing but custom object or custom field or anything. It is case sensitive. And when it comes to members, so you have to give the custom object name. I'm giving as, let's say, uh, Visualpath, I'm taking as an object. So that is a custom object. So I'm taking it. Or you can take account also as an object. So if it is a custom field, then you have to account dot Visualpath __ C. Something like that. So you have to define this way and then you have to do a deployment using and. And is there any other way which we can do the deployments? So for and, you need to have and installed in your local, and you need to have Java. But Now Salesforce deprecated and so you cannot use and going forward. So Salesforce deprecated and. So the other way of doing deployments is you can use Workbench to do the deployments, the same kind of a concept. Whatever the package.xml that is there, right? You can use the same concept. You can do the deployments using Workbench. Is there another way where you can do the deployments? Yes. So in Salesforce, you have two kinds of data. One is metadata, and you have source format, which is nothing but SFDX. So if you go to the metadata, right? So the deployments are like, for example, you can use and like the format is so in SFDX, the format of the file structure will be course app main default. Under that, you will have different folders where, for example, let's say if you have a profile, right? So in profile, everything will be covered in single folder. Like for example, if you have 12,000 lines in metadata format, everything will be there in single profile page. But whereas in source format, this profile will be divided into fields, field permissions, layout permissions, and you can have subfolders. I mean to say, what I'm trying to say is that you can have a splitting of your profile into different kind of folders, whereas in metadata, you don't have that kind of a structure. Everything will be there in a single file. And with source format, with SFDX, the authentication of org, you can use SFDX colon authenticate. And you can use SFDX colon deploy. And you can use SFDX colon retrieve. But later, Salesforce come up with a new upgrade and they says SFDX is changed to SF now. So the commands which you have to use is SF colon authenticate. So the thing is that every upgrades which is happening from Salesforce, they come up with new kind of features, and also you have to be every time working on the releases and understand that how the releases that they are giving up. I mean, understand the features what they're giving up, and then you read the documentation, and then you have to get to up to date that what are all the features that are coming as a part of the summer upgrade and as a part of the Salesforce upgrades that are coming up. So with respect to the metadata, if you want to deploy, convert from metadata to SFDX format, right? You can convert using a SFDX met source format convert. There are commands available which you can convert it. So what I'm trying to say is that you have different tools available in the market where you can do the deployments using all these tools. And you have one more tool called VS Code, Visual Studio Code, where you can install and where you can deploy using VS Code, using SFDX, and you can deploy and you can retrieve from one org to another org. It is an plugin like an you can play around and then you can retrieve your code to your org and then you can deploy to other orgs. So this will work when you have a single developer in the organization. What if multiple developers are working on the organization and multiple developers are working in the same class? And how the backup of the data you are taking? When I say data, it's a metadata. So then you got a version control into place where it's called Git, where you commit the code into a Git repository and you make sure that you raise a pull request before merging. And if you have any conflicts, like when you're trying to merge to next instance, you'll get a conflict where you'll work with the developer and resolve the conflicts and you go ahead with the deployment. The version controllers, how many kinds we have? So we have different kind of version controls. One is Git and one more is Bitbucket and one more is GitLab and we have Copado version control, and we have Azure, which is nothing but ADO repository. So all these tools inside they use a Git logic, but only the UI is different. The commands everywhere it is same. The UI look is different. For Git, you have a different UI. For Bitbucket, you have a different UI. For GitLab, you have a different UI. Like you take an example of mobiles, you have different mobiles available in the market. If you go for an Android version, you have different mobiles in the market like Samsung, you have a Poco, and you have uh, different versions of mobiles available, but they use the version as Android as a version system, right? So that means they all rely on only the same thing, but only the model is getting different. In the same way here, the way of using the tool is different. In GitLab, they give different kind of features where pull request when you're raising it, they give some kind of UI difference. And when it comes to GitLab, Git, they have a different kind of UI. And when it comes to Bitbucket, it has a different kind of UI, and ADO it has a different kind of UI.
You mean
So the
everything
version
is you sorry to interrupt. So Git will be the kind of backend and these are UI displays, Bitbucket,
yes,
GitLab and Copado
yes,
versions.
yes,
That's the thing.
that's that. And if you want to use, let's say in Git, you have different commands, Git status. So it means that the Git status will work for all the version controls. It is not something like that for Bitbucket, there will not be any different command like Bitbucket colon Git colon status. No, all these things relied on Git. Git is a programming language which you have where everything will be relayed on the Git, and they uses that programming language, and the UI that shows is different. That's it. There is nothing different. What I can say is that we can discuss that once we have the topics going forward in the sessions, right? Uh, So whatever the data, whatever the code that you have here, right? Like let's say you deployed something, right? So that the same thing you want to put it into a Git because you are taking that backup into the Git version so that other people also see that what you are developing and what how you will be doing the deployment. Let's say two developers are working on the same class. So one developer is making um, changes on, let's say, trigger, and the second developer also making changes on trigger. So if he deploy directly to org first developer, it will be deployed as new. And the second developer, when he is deploying it, right? If he don't have the first developer components, then he will create new again. That means he will try to override your changes. So to control this, we have Git introduced where the first person will commit to Git, and second person when he's trying to Git and when he's trying to raise a PR, he will get a conflict. And that's where he'll understand that there is another developer has also trying to deploy the same to a different instance, or he already deployed it. I'm trying to override his changes, so I make sure that I should not override his changes. So he will sit with the developer and understand whether what are the lines that he has it, right? So whether I can override or I can create those new lines. So let's say here the developer one developed the changes like this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the second developer he changed 1 to 0 and 2 he'll have here, and the line of 3 he changed to 8, and he changed to 5, he changed to 6. So either he need to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1, 8, 5, 6. So after 1, the 0 will get added. After 2, the 1 will get added. After 3, the 8 will, he need to resolve a conflict. After 4, he need to resolve conflict called 5. But the line 5 is already there. So he can ignore that and he can put after 5, the line 6. So this way, when you're resolving a conflict, that will understand clearly in the future classes. So just an example, I'm just trying to tell you that this way you have to resolve your conflicts and why Git is necessary here. why the version control is needed here, right? Now, coming back to the tools that we have available in the market. So these are the tools that we have, and these are some of the deployment tools that we have. Now, why we have different tools in the market called Copado, why we have Flowsum, why we have AutoRabbit, why we have Getsit, why we have Perio DX, I guess. I think it's an internal tool for them. I don't want to bring this here. Yeah. Then why we need these tools in the market? So the thing is that initially when Copado, AutoRabbit, Java, and I say Java, let me explain. Salesforce, Salesforce. If you take an example of iOS and if you take an example of Android, if you're an iPhone user, so you know the iOS versions, the iPhones are built on top of iOS and Android phones are built on. I mean to say that the versions, what I'm trying to say is that take this example out. Don't want to confuse you guys. This is a Salesforce. Salesforce has a structure where Copado built on top of Salesforce. When I say on top of Salesforce, it uses Apex, Salesforce objects, and they have integrated with Git programming language. And sorry, somebody want to ask a question. All right, I'll take the questions at the end. Feel free to stop me if you are really stuck somewhere. So when I say built on top of Salesforce, so if you know Salesforce, a basic idea, uh, when you're developing any product, right? If if you're having compatible with that tool, then only it will work. Let's say you go to Play Store and you have different kind of versions available. This is for Android, this is for iOS, this is for Android, this is for iOS. If I am trying to update iOS app, Android app in my iOS, the version, I mean, it is not supported, right? So the same thing I'm trying to put it here. So the Copado is built on top of Salesforce, Flowsum on top of Salesforce, AutoRabbit. It's a custom language that they have created the complete UI with the help of Java, and they build that AutoRabbit tool. And when it comes to Gateset, they use a Salesforce object, and they build the Gateset. So coming to Copado, why it is famous and why it is so popular in the market. So Copado has a lot of advantages when it comes to other tools. The way of doing the deployments, the way of handling the deployments, and the way of reporting, and the way of they have the extensions, they have the packages, they have supporting the DX, and they're supporting um, robotic testing, and they are they have huge clients in the market like Google, and they have different kind of vendors also available for Copado. Now let's talk about Copado in detail. When I say built on Salesforce, they uses different objects. Like for a normal Salesforce guy, for him it is very easy to understand Copado
Yes,
because
sir,
it is
sorry to
built off
stop
of
here.
Salesforce.
So you mentioned Copado is Salesforce and Flowsum is Salesforce, Gearset is Salesforce. So is that something developed by Salesforce or they are using Salesforce objects and developed it?
I clearly mentioned in the down that Copado built on top of Salesforce.
No, no, Flowsum and Gearset, I mean to ask.
Yes, they built on top of Salesforce.
Sir, so will you be covering all the four this tool?
No, no, no. I'll be covering only Copado, not other tools. I'm telling what are the tools that are available in the market so that you'll understand that how you have different tools in the market as well. So you have Azure, you have Jenkins, you have Bamboo, you have GitLab pipelines, you have GitLab, Git, GitHub Actions. We have different tools in the market. So here, as a part of this training, we'll discuss Copado and we discuss Azure. I'm not going to discuss any topics with respect to all this stuff. And close them out rabbit gets it. No. So that is where I want to.
And are you covering the little bit admin parts as well, or directly you'll be covering Copado?
No, no, no. On to the Copado side because this is for Salesforce DevOps, not for the Salesforce admin. So you need to understand some basic stuff outside and then you have to come back. Because if I teach the Salesforce admin, I cannot complete the course on time. And I clearly mentioned, I guess you would have got already the template that whatever that the statement itself I mentioned as Salesforce DevOps engineer, Salesforce Reliance engineer, and the topics also I mentioned that where I'm getting started, right? So if you see right with respect to the Copado, how to do commit, how to do a deployment and commit process, and how to validate, what are the quality gates, and how to resolve a conflicts in Copado, and what are feature branches and promotion branches in Copado, and how to set up a Copado post refresh, and what are connection behaviors, and this is metadata deployment. When it comes to same thing with the SFDX, how to do deployment using SFDX, and how to validate the components using SFDX, and the same thing how to integrate your Copado with PMD or with CodeScan or SonarQube, how to integrate with your Copado with Zira or Azure, and what is meant by compliance analysis, etc. So all these topics will be covered as a part of a Copado. And apart from that, Copado data deployments, how you do the data deployment from one org to another org, that also will be given as a part of the training. And apart from that, what is the Salesforce refresh activity process? Whenever you refresh a Salesforce sandbox, how to refresh your Salesforce sandbox, and how to do a data masking, and what are the refresh activities, what are Salesforce upgrades, like summer, winter, and spring, and how do you deal with those upgrades, and the high level overview on the SSO, and how to create a connected app, and then how to manage those permissions, and how to install the app exchange tools that are given as a part of a Salesforce DevOps. Let's say you are a DevOps engineer and you ask to install a package, how to install that package, and how the change management process works. And for example, how to raise a case when somebody asks to raise a case in Salesforce, and how to take a backup in own, and what are the monitoring tools that are available in the market, and how to build a release calendar. When I say release calendar, how your release manager is building your releases, how he is planning a releases, and how to make sure that your releases are, how your deployments are compatible. Compatible means how your releases are planned as per the deployments. So how it will be there in the real time, like what kind of releases which will be available. And for example, if you want to do a deployment with tools that are available like Workbench, Chainsets, and GitHub Repo, Bitbucket, GitLab, Gitbash, GitHub Desktop, VS Code Pool Builder. These are some of the version control tools and also the deployment tools. And the next thing is that deployments using Azure DevOps. Like I'll be creating some of the scripts in Azure DevOps, and we'll be doing an Azure DevOps with SFDX deployment. So creating a pipeline, and then we'll connect that with the Salesforce and doing the deployment. And some extension tools available like Salesforce Inspector, how to do a data load, post refresh activities, how to insert the user and other stuff. So yeah, so these are the topics that I'm going to cover as a part of the session. So if you go back to the next page, that what we are discussing again here, right? So with respect to Copado, we are discussing at this point. As I told, Copado is built on top of Salesforce. That means they use Salesforce Apex and they used Salesforce object model to create the objects. But the feature branches and the promotion branches and the merging process and the deployment process, all these things, they use some of the Git commands for merging, and they use some of the APIs to call Salesforce to perform the Salesforce deployments. And you will have a 360 degrees view how the deployments are happening, who are deploying what, and you will have a reporting also here very good, where you can see how many deployments are done per a month, and you can see you can you can create a story attached to a Jira ticket, and you can do the deployment at any point of time without depending on others. And here the deployments are delta. The whole package will not get deployed. The delta package will get deployed. So what I can say is that the deployments are delta, and yeah, there are a lot of advantages when you go to next topics that we'll understand more briefly on how Copado works and what are the advantages that they have, etc. Blossom is also similar kind of a tool which is built on top of Salesforce, but inside the way of doing the deployment is different. When I say the way of doing the deployment is different, for example, if I say that um, um, take an example of two courses like Azure, and you take Salesforce CRM and you take Siebel CRM. You see that how much vast difference is there with the Siebel CRM and the Salesforce CRM, right? In the same way, Copado and Flowsum, the way of doing the deployments is different, but at the end, everybody will do the deployment to Salesforce. I mean, the way of doing the deployment Salesforce is same, but the way of execution is different when it comes to Copado and Flowsum. When it comes to AutoRabbit, yeah, the UI is completely different. The way of handling is different. The way of conflict resolution is different in AutoRabbit. The way of conflict resolution in Copilot is different, and the way of conflict resolution in Flowsum is different. And also in GateSet, also it is different. I didn't get chance to work on the below three tools, but what I understand from these three tools is that it's like if you understand 1 or 2 days by seeing that how these tools work. Like, I mean, if you understand the above Git, and if you understand that at least one tool here, right, Copado or any other tool, right, then you'll understand how the way of doing the deployments, so that in future, if somebody is asking you if you want to transform to any other Copado to Flowsum or Flowsum to AutoRabbit, it is something only the change of um, the way of working, but something that you are working on the model that you worked previously, like the way of doing a deployment, it remains the same. But only the changing is that the way of doing the deployment is different. So they use the commands deploy and retrieve only in the backend, whereas Flowsum also does the same. But I'm trying to say is the UI is different and way of execution is different. Let's say here promotion and feature branches is there. In Flowsum, it is a snapshot kind of a methodology is there. And you can deploy using commit ID, something like that. In Copilot also you can do it. In Flowsum, it is different. In AutoRabbit, they uses I guess they also uses the and deploy and retrieve same commands they have to use it, but finally the UI is different. AutoRabbit completely the UI is different. You need to understand that AutoRabbit, if you want to launch, right, you need to take some trainings and you need to learn something with respect to AutoRabbit. But Copilot and Flowsum, if you have a Salesforce basic knowledge with respect to some of the trailers which you done on Salesforce admin or something, right, it is very easy for you to understand Copilot. So the only way of execution, the way of UI, and how to resolve the issues is completely different from all these tools. Any questions here?
We will be using command or sir, UI based.
Copilot is UI based. All these things are UI based. So yeah, forgot to explain to you that why this tools comes into market. Already we have the above tools. The problem is Git commands and conflict resolution. Copado is having conflict resolution auto resolve features where you don't need to resolve any conflict. You don't need to use any Git commands. Everything will be taken care by tool. It's kind of a drag and drop tool. So you just need to click on commit changes, automatically commit takes place, and you just need to click on deploy. Deployment will be done automatic. If you click on auto resolve, the auto resolve uh, will be done automatically. It has some solutions if you use it. If you want to resolve manually, you can do manually also. It gives you a kind of a panel where it shows you a clear picture and what else? Everything you can do through UI. Just you don't need to use any commands. You don't need to remember any commands. What I can say is that. Any questions here? Yes.
We need to learn Salesforce segments to work.
Sorry, sorry, I didn't get you. What is that?
Do we need to learn Salesforce segments course to work real time on this tool?
I don't think so. You just need only the Salesforce trailhead, just on a basic concepts like setup objects. You need to how to log into Salesforce and how to move the UI. I mean, like let's say if somebody is asking to go to single sign-on settings, then you have to go to setup and you have to search for single sign-on settings. So I mean to say that you need to understand the basic UI, how you have to move it. You don't need to know everything because the pre steps and post steps you will get help from developer. So you don't need to worry on that. So they'll guide you that with the steps they'll give you step by step, like where to go and where to start. And for example, let's say if you want to deactivate any flow, right? So they'll give you a step like go to setup, go to flows, search for the flow name called Visualpath underscore activate flow, and go to version number 20. So deactivate. So in this case, if you don't know how to log into Salesforce, it is very difficult. So I'm telling you, just try to log into Salesforce and go to setup. So for example, um, uh, I don't have the org open now. So go to Salesforce and click on setup. And in the setup, search for flows, and then you have to go this. So you have to understand at least how to use the UI. Let's say if I am an Android guy, if I am given an iOS phone, I don't know how to operate it. It's like 1 or 2 days for me, it is new. And later I'll understand everything with respect to iOS. The same thing with respect to Salesforce. When you want to learn Copado, you need to understand the basic print on this one. And rest, I don't think so. You don't require at this point of time.
Okay. Any other scripting languages or any other technologies we need to learn?
No, with respect to Copado, no, not required.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Git also no, because everything will be taken care by Copado. You no need to learn Git also because the tool was introduced such a way that it is eliminating the manual kind of pushing the changes, manual kind of committing the changes, manual kind of merging the changes. Everything will be taken care by Copado. You just need to understand how to use the UI and you need to just click on commit, click on deploy, how to deploy it and how to validate and how to resolve issues when a team gets an error. Like let's say your team is reaching out to you and saying that I'm not able to deploy, how to resolve such issues. So all these things we are discussing as a part of a Copado going forward. Once this session gets started, right? So we'll be getting slowly started with what is Copado, how to install this package, and once the package is installed, how to get started with the Copado, what is credential object, and how to authenticate your Salesforce or integrate Salesforce or with Copado, and how to create a user story and user story creation process. If I don't want to create it user story manual, then how to do an integration from Salesforce to from Copado Salesforce to Azure or to Jira, or if you have Asana tool or Asana. So how to integrate that so that the Jira stories are automatically synced to Copado, and then the story creation is automatic, and then I go and click on commit changes. I select my components, and then I do a deployment to next environment. Right? So let's discuss on a simple pipeline. Let's say my pipeline is dev, int, UAT, stage, and then prod. Normally for dev, I choose developer sandbox. For int, let's say I'm choosing developer pro because I have a CPQ, and UAT, it's a full copy, and stage, let's say I'm taking as full copy, or I can take this as a UAT as a partial copy, and stage full copy, and then production. As you know, production is equivalent to the full copy sandbox. So if I want to build a pipeline in Copado, right, how to build a pipeline with this? When it comes to other tools, you have to write, let's say Jenkins or GitLab pipelines, right? You have to write YAML file to execute the deployments from one org to another org. In Copado, no, not required anything. Just create a connection object from dev to int, from int to UAT, and from UAT to stage, and stage to production. And for dev, there is a branch which will be creating as dev branch. For int, the branch as int, and the same thing int branch already have created. And for UAT, UAT is a branch name, and UAT, and next thing is stage. Already stage you have created, so stage branch, production, nothing but main/master. So if you want to have Copado, so you need to install Copado on Salesforce, and Copado you have to integrate with Git. When I say integrate with Git, you have to give username and password, and Copado and Git project of the Git, username and password, project name. So you'll understand when we are getting connected with Git repository, but you will not use any commands to integrate, or you will not do any kind of coding kind of activities. No, it's all the basic stuff, the UA stuff which you need to understand. You have to integrate. When I say integrate with Salesforce, install the package. So I'll tell you how to install the package, and it is not something Copilot is licensed. It is very costly, and you have different licenses available. One is for admin and one is for the developer users also. And they have different licenses for all the features. Like for example, if you want to use data deployments, you have to buy something different. And if you want to use compliance analysis, the license is different. So you have to pay and then use it. And if you want to use the basic stuff, then you need to have the branch management and normal license. So it is something, what I can say is that it is a little costly, what I observed when it comes to Copado, because of the UI that they are giving up and the way they are handling the deployments, right? So they're charging too costly when it comes to other tools, what I observed. Yeah, whereas Jenkins and GitLab pipelines, you have to write an YAML script. And once you written an YAML script, so you have to create some of the branches called develop and some of the branches called release. And you have to use Git commands to commit the changes to develop and some of the changes to get released, and write a YAML scripting to to trigger these pipelines to the next environments. Let's say you have to write a script for dev, for int, and then for stage, and then for prod, based on the branches. If develop branch is having changes, then push the changes to int, and for release, any changes put it to stage, and for main put it for production. So this concept is completely different, and it requires some scripting thing, but we are not dealing with that. We are dealing with Copado and how Copado works and how to do deployments using Copado. and Salesforce refresh activity, and deployments using Azure DevOps. Here also you don't require any scripting. You can use SFDX basic commands, and you can do a deployment using Azure DevOps. I can tell you this, how to create a pipeline and how to do automatic deployment, how to create a release in Azure DevOps, and how ADO works. We can discuss on this topic as well. Apart from that, on the Git versions, on the release calendar, on the refresh activity, on the Copado deployment sprint. So this is about the course about which I'm going to discuss if we get started. I'll stop here. I want to understand from you that do you have any questions here at this point of time?
In the Salesforce market, which tool is widely used? Is that Copado or something else?
See, I can tell as a trainee, right? I can say that Copado is used, right? The thing is that
And is there
I'm just
are
getting
there any other products in Copado
see
apart from this
no
CI/CD?
no no they don't have any other products. So if I go outside, right? Let's say if I'm a 10 people organization, I use VS Code or I use Workbench or I use GitLab pipelines or GitHub Actions, right? If I'm a 50 people organization, I have a budget available. Maybe I use Copado. If I'm a 100 people organization, I have to use Copado because I cannot manage this 100 people with Git. And then if somebody does any mess, it'll be a problem for me. So I have different tools available in the market. So Copado, Flowsum, Gateset, right? So I choose Copado as a market because it has more advantages compared to Flowsum or AutoRabbit or Gateset. If I have a 100 people organization, same different company, I choose AutoRabbit. So I cannot say that people has to use Copado. I cannot tell that. So people go with different tools also because they have the marketing strategies. So let's say if you go for an AutoRabbit, they say that we have these many features. But once you go and land there, and if you already work with a different tool, then you will understand, okay, AutoRabbit is doing great for me. But if they comes to Copado, they think that Copado is doing more far great than AutoRabbit. And if what if Copado comes guy come to AutoRabbit, then he thinks that, oh, something is manual here, so I have to do some stuff here manual. So what I'm trying to say is that it depends on the company's decision and it depends on how companies use. I cannot say that you have to use Copado. If they're using for a long time, they'll go with the same tools. And
Basically, you mean
if
to say for larger teams, it will be very much useful and it is more efficient with the Salesforce deployments.
yes, yes. But you have different tools also competition in the market. Like let's say why I'm giving a basic phone example because we are doing a real time every day. You are using phone. You have Android phones. You have Samsung. You have iOS, Apple. So people buys Android plus people tend to buy iOS also. It is not something like people only buys Android and people doesn't buy iOS. So the thing is that there are some advantages in Android and some disadvantages in Android. The same thing, some advantages in iOS. So people tend to use iOS also. Let's think Copilot is on iOS. People go because it is costly. I am
Got it.
saying Copilot is this because it's costly. So if I don't want to go with costly tool and if I want to use it, when it comes to security, everything they take care. And let's say if you want to build integration with Azure ADO, or if you want to build integration with Zira, you have to write a custom code and you have to use APIs so that you will integrate with Zira. It requires 2 developers and it requires max to max 1 month or 2 months of time. But with Copado, I no need to do that stuff. I no need to have any other developers external. It is already integrated. We just need to install the package and we need to make use of it. So here, why people tends to go for these kind of tools because again they have to do some, they have to invest there and then they have to have the tool up and running and they have to give KT to everybody that this tool will be used like this and they have to tell them on the Git commands. Like you have to use the Git commands like this. So if somebody has done any mess, it will be a whole problem for my whole company, right? Because right, if a delivery is very delay, let's say if it is my e-commerce application, if my delivery is delay, my production will have the revenue loss, right? Let's say if I have a production P1 issue, if a developer has done a mess in dev instance and then he's trying to push it to production, I lose something more, right? So the thing is that business will look for a tools which is easy and which will be helpful for developers.
So Chandra, you mean to say there are no prerequisites for this to learn, right?
Yeah, you need to
Just a basic
learn just a
knowledge of
basic.
Salesforce is enough.
Yeah, yeah.
How long this duration would be for training, and what would be the
See, the
timing?
training is like within 30 days. My plan is like if you have more time, I mean, max to max 30 days.
Okay.
I
And
don't want to take more.
you will be covering with the Jira integration, right?
Yeah,
Copado with
Zero
Jira.
and yeah, zero integration I'll cover. I'll cover
Okay.
Copado end-to-end deployment and how to do automation deployment using Copado and what are the quality gates, like let's say code scan and some of the validation rules how to implement. Let's say PR request approval, code coverage thing, and
All right.
some some quality gates with respect to Salesforce.
Okay. So I heard something like CRT, Copado robotic testing. Is that something
Yeah,
different?
that is different. That is recently they've introduced, so that is having a lot of bugs still. So that is
Uh,
not that model is still in a beta phase. What I can say is that people are not using that model also. But it is something like for testing team it will be useful, not for us
okay.
basically. If somebody wants to do the robotic testing, right, they can use the Copilot tool to do that kind of a testing. That tool will be useful for that.
I heard that something it will be integrated with a CI/CD pipeline. Oh, so there's lot to go on that, I guess.
Yeah, but I understand. But that was onboarded
As you
recently.
said,
The thing is
yeah, as
that
you said, it's in the initial phase. Yes.
yeah, and I mean, to be frank, I'm not using the tool also, and I haven't heard from anyone that they have integrated with that because it is again you have to pay license for that. People are not
That's right.
really interested because you already have Selenium, you already have different tools available with respect to scripting for testing team. Why they come up here and then they will do the testing here and then they will integrate. I can integrate directly from my Copado to Azure DevOps, right? Or I can integrate from my Copado to Selenium scripting and then I can invoke those scripts as well from Copado itself.
No, no, the direction is in different way. If something Salesforce developer makes the changes, so they add the test case within the change, and
Yeah, that's what I'm
when
trying to
we
say.
deploy the
You
change,
can,
yeah,
yeah, you can achieve that without using the CRT as well.
okay, okay, got it.
As a part of a story, you have an external jobs, okay, where you can call your Selenium script or an Azure, where in Azure you're writing a Java code, right? For a Selenium, right? You can invoke Azure pipeline, where Azure pipeline will invoke the Selenium script, where the job will run and it will give you a result, and that result will get captured in Copado. So you can do
Oh,
that way also, but
okay,
that doesn't
got
require
it.
CL.
So it is well versed to integrate with Selenium as well. Copado.
Not directly with Selenium. We have an external jobs where we integrate with Selenium.
Okay.
You can integrate external things with Copado.
What would be the timing? Is that decided?
I think Visualpath team will check and come back on that front. They haven't
Okay.
told me yet at this point of time, but preferably in the morning it will be there. For sure. Any questions from anyone?
Do you provide any material, study material?
Good question, Priya. Study material. So I haven't prepared, to be frank, I don't have any study material, but however, everything is there in the Copado documentation. So I can tell you, I can guide you that it is like free. I mean, you just open the documentation link, and then if you want me to give you right, I will also do and copy paste from there. To be frank, what I'll do is, so I'll give that link of the documentation link which Copado has given, where you can search and where you can understand also. For example, if you're stuck somewhere, if you don't understand my class, then you can go and search there and you can get the clear picture that how the flow is created. For example, let's say you want to authenticate a credential in Copado. So I said that you go to so and so object, you click on authenticate button, but you didn't understand the class. So if you go to documentation, it will be there with clear concept that okay, you go here, click on authenticate, come here. So these are the steps. So I'll give you a documentation link where you have each and everything mentioned there. Is that fine, Priya?
Yes, and when you're explaining like real-time deployments, so do
Yeah.
we get any access to work with tool? How?
So for Copado, I'll tell you that we have a success.copado.com where you can install the Copado there, and it will be for 30 days where we can learn and practice with respect to Salesforce, but not with respect to SFDX. SFDX, they haven't released any version. And the problem is that SFDX, I have to explain via documentation, and I cannot explain you going to real time clicking each and every command, because if I go as a Visualpath team, if I ask for one license, right, they'll say get out. So they'll not give me licensing with respect to one customer. So it is something I have to go with 10 people or 20 people. I have to take those licenses and then I have to start working on SFDX. So SFDX also new thing to Copado, but it's like 2 years, or sorry, 1 year or 1.5 year came into the market. So if you understand how we are doing the deployments with metadata, right? It's the same thing with SFDX. There is no difference. The UI and everything is same, but only the backend logic, how it is implementing is different. And I can show you that how it is implemented in a different way. Yeah, you can learn and you can practice along with me. I can tell you that how to get started also. And with respect to certification, yes, earlier they used to give free vouchers, but I have to see that whether if they give any free vouchers if you attend any trainings. If that is there, I can help you to get those certifications. If that is not there, sorry, I cannot give you those. I cannot get you those vouchers. Hope I understand you. I answer your question, Priya.
Okay, yeah. So I'm trying to move to IT field. Actually, I'm from a non-IT background.
Okay.
So I was very like any other new technologies or depending on this Copado course, do I need to do any other courses like
No.
Salesforce so I can
Salesforce Trailhead,
practice
you
that?
need to get started. On the first day, I'll tell you that how to get started with the Trailhead and what kind of topics you need to understand on the Trailhead. Salesforce basic admin module, I'll ask you to go through on understanding the Salesforce Trailhead thing, where you can sit at home and then you can practice those topics. You don't need to learn outside.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anil, you have some question trying to ask.
No, I'm good.
Perfect.
Yeah. I was about to ask about SFDX. Is that
Hmm.
something a different deployment thing or it's part of Copado?
It's part of Copado only, but the way of execution is different. It needed a few things. Developer hub should be enabled on production, and the thing is that you need to refresh all your sandboxes once your developer hub is enabled. And the thing is that the way of executing is different. The UI is little different compared to SFTX, so normal metadata deployment. And commit
So,
process, deployment process, everything is same, but they use SFDX commands inside. But you will not see what they've used. Nothing is visible. Just a UI is different.
so is that something we can do all the deployments without SFDX?
Yes, you can do it without SFTX also. The first topic which we discuss is like doing deployments without SFTX, doing deployments with SFTX.
Okay, all right.
Any questions? If not, yeah, I'm going to cover these other topics, right? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Chandra.
Thanks all. Thanks for your time. Bye guys.